Hi, I'm Kaylee, and today I'm talking about Tolkien's The Fall of Arthur. This is an epic poem that was left incomplete. It was never finished, but Christopher Tolkien has edited some of it for us, and so we get to read just a little snippet of this epic alliterative poetry about the Arthurian legend. So before we dive into The Fall of Arthur, I'm gonna reach back here to our Booktuber Shoutout book, and we're gonna shout out somebody randomly. Today's shout out goes to Sarah at Your True Shelf. I'll leave a link to their channel over in the description, so be sure to click on over there and subscribe to them. And please do subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and follow me on Instagram and Goodreads and Storygraph and all the places. One of my goals this year has been to read a J.R.R. Tolkien or C.S. Lewis related book every month, and this month it is The Fall of Arthur. Actually, I think The Fall of Arthur was supposed to be last month, but I didn't get it finished, and so now I finally finished The Fall of Arthur, last month's book. In the 1930s, Tolkien began work on an epic alliterative poem about King Arthur's downfall. It was never finished, but Christopher Tolkien provides notes and explanations about the few lines that we do have. The actual poem only takes up about 45 pages in this book. It is beautiful and haunting and wild, and the patterns in the alliteration are woven together in this tapestry of words that powerfully tell the story of Arthur and his knights, of Mordred and Lancelot and Guinevere, and the last days of the Round Table. I read most of it out loud to myself because the words just drip like honey, rich and resonant. It is meant to be read out loud. But unfortunately, there is so little of it. It's just these first little tiny section, 45 pages, that is the actual poem. The next chapter of the book explores old versions of the Arthur tale from Sir Thomas Malory and Geoffrey of Monmouth. We get to learn about the traditions of the legend of King Arthur and his knights and how the legend changed throughout the centuries. There are some details from old poems that Tolkien chose to include in his own rendition of Arthur's story, but there were also a lot of plot points that he ignored in favor of focusing more on specific characters like Lancelot or Gawain, and he also adds a more clear portrait of Guinevere than the older poems did, adding more of her perspective and her feelings. The next chapter dives into Tolkien's imagination, how his work on the Silmarillion was connected with Arthur's last journey to Avalon. Avalon is mirrored in Tolkien's lonely isle of Tol Eressëa at the edge of Valinor. There are a lot of parallels between Arthurian legends, legends about Atlantis, and Tolkien's islands of Numenor and Tol Eressëa in the Silmarillion. We get to learn some of the little details in these stories that show the way Tolkien's imagination was connecting different threads of ideas. And there was a whole section devoted to explaining the various different drafts of Tolkien's unfinished poem and small little changes that were added in each draft. And there are a few notes outlining the direction the story would have taken if Tolkien could have finished it, with Arthur sailing into the west to find healing in Avalon, and then Lancelot following him in despair, seeking forgiveness, with neither of them to ever return. And there is also a small appendix talking about the alliterative poetic style and how it developed in the early days of Britain around and before 1066. I found this very interesting because he analyzes the pattern and the meter of this alliterative style. He gives some examples from ancient poems and then compares those patterns to Tolkien's epic poem here. It was really cool to dive into that poetic structure and realize just how brilliant Tolkien was to construct these complex and beautiful lines and make it seem so effortless and natural because it flows along so gracefully. I really enjoyed reading this book. It's such a pity that this poem was never finished. So leave me a comment and let me know, what is one of your favorite epic poems, or what is your favorite version of the Arthurian legend? I love retellings of King Arthur. I just eat them up. But I feel like if this poem had ever been finished, this would have probably been my favorite Arthurian epic retelling. It just makes me so sad that it was never finished. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.